Republicans sounding off in support of the deadly strike on a suspected drug vessel off the coast of Venezuela. Here with me now to discuss, CBP Senior Advisor Ron Vitiello. Ron, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
So, U.S. forces took out a Tren de Aragua ship. Secretary Rubio talked about the threat. Let's play him and I'll get you to react.
They are narco-terrorist organizations. These are not stockbrokers. These are not real estate agents who on the side deal a few drugs. These are organized, corporate-structured organizations who specialize in the trafficking of deadly drugs into the United States of America. They pose an immediate threat to the United States, period.
Vice President J.D. Vance says killing cartels is, quote, the highest and best use of our military. How do you assess this more aggressive approach?
Well, it's fantastic. This is a commitment by the entirety of the U.S. government, led by the President Trump, to make sure that this poison isn't making it across our borders into the United States and killing our young people. So now these drug smuggling cartels, and this particular one was also a terrorist organization, they have to calculate when they leave their shores, the safety of Venezuela in this case. They have to calculate, are they going to be able to make it all the way across the ocean? That's going to increase their fees, that's going to increase their fear, and it's going to deter a lot of people from getting on that boat and sending that poison our way.
Congressman Ilhan Omar is not happy, writing on X, quote, I condemn the Trump administration's lawless and reckless actions in the Southern Caribbean. Congress has not declared war on Venezuela or Tren de Aragua, and the mere designation of a group as a terrorist organization does not give any president carte blanche to ignore Congress's clear constitutional authority on matters of war and peace. Virginia Senator Mark Warner also pushed back today. Let's play him and I'll get you to react.
If they were so sure that these were bad guys with a boat filled with drugs, wouldn't it have been a hell of a lot more convincing if we could have interdicted that boat, shown their faces, shown the drugs, and proven to the world that this was just not an American rogue action?
What about those criticisms, and should Congress take action?
He's absolutely wrong about the circumstances in this case. This is a terrorist organization, and there's no question what those individuals were doing in that boat. So Virginia deserves better, and we've tolerated this as a society. We've tolerated it as a country. We've tolerated it in the hemisphere for too long. This is a definitive action that lets the world know, that lets these organizations know that things are different, and the president is going to protect all of us.
Secretary Rubio also announced the designation of 2 terrorist groups that operate in Ecuador, calling them vicious animals. How are those groups impacting the U.S. and trouble throughout the region?
Well, it's another organized gang that preys on people, that sends poison into the United States. This designation allows the whole of government to look at them like we are looking at Tren de Aragua, to eradicate them from the United States and take them on in the hemisphere as well.
Rubio says the United States and Mexico are better collaborating to fight illegal drugs and address illegal immigration on both sides of the border. You're the expert. What are the expectations?
Well, the border's never been as safe as it is as we speak right now. Our own military, our own State Department, Health and Human Services, the Department of Justice, they're all doing a really good job in helping us control and patrol the physical border. Mexico has also deployed troops on their northern border, helping. There's a military-to-military relationship. They're doing more than I've ever seen. A lot more to do, both on the physical border on our side and in that country, but they are leaning in. There's no question about it. The leadership at the White House is being followed by Los Pinos as well.
I think of the men and women on the front lines of the border who, during the Biden administration, I'm sure their morale was not great, seeing people stream across the border. What's the morale like right now for our men and women who are enacting or enforcing American law?
It's really off the charts. Morale is better than I've ever seen it. They have an opportunity now to succeed in the jobs that they've been hired for. They've been given the tools to succeed both on the policy side and operationally. They're getting more capacity every single day, and so they're very happy about that.
Ron Vitiello, thank you for your service and thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Thursday that the U.S. would respond after former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro was convicted of plotting a coup to remain in power after his loss in the 2022 election, although the secretary did not go into detail about what a U.S. response would look like. The political persecutions by sanctioned human rights abuser Alexandre de Moraes continue, as he and others on Brazil's Supreme Court have unjustly ruled to imprison former President Jair Bolsonaro, Rubio wrote on X. The United States will respond accordingly to this witch hunt, he continued. Brazil's foreign ministry argued that Rubio's comment represented a threat that attacks Brazilian authority and ignores the facts and the compelling evidence in the records. The ministry said Brazilian democracy would not be intimidated by the U.S. government. Bolsonaro was sentenced to 27 years and 3 months in prison when he was convicted by the country's Supreme Court on Thursday on charges of plotting a coup to stop President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva from taking office in January 2023. The former Brazilian leader was a close ally of U.S. President Donald Trump during the first Trump administration. Well, I watched that trial. I know him pretty well. I thought he was a good president of Brazil, and it's very surprising that could happen very much like they tried to do with me, but they didn't get away with it at all, Trump told reporters, noting the legal cases against the U.S. president in recent years at the state and federal level, which included his conviction in New York. But I can always say this, I knew him as president of Brazil. He was a good man, he added. Trump has criticized the Brazilian judicial system and threatened tariffs on the country for its case against Bolsonaro. In July, the U.S. president placed 50% tariffs on most Brazilian goods in response to a witch hunt against Bolsonaro. He later exempted some Brazilian exports, including passenger vehicles and numerous parts and components used in civil aircraft. Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes, his unspecified allies on the court, and his immediate family members will face visa revocations, according to Rubio, who criticized what he called a political witch hunt against the former president. That same month, Rubio announced visa revocations on Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes, who presided over Bolsonaro's criminal case, and his unspecified allies on the court after the court issued search warrants and restraining orders against Bolsonaro. The U.S. Treasury Department had also sanctioned the judge over allegations of authorizing arbitrary pretrial detentions and suppressing freedom of expression. Bolsonaro's son, Brazilian Congressman Eduardo Bolsonaro, said he anticipates additional U.S. sanctions against Brazilian justices following his father's conviction. We are going to have a firm response with actions from the U.S. government against this dictatorship that is being installed in Brazil, he told Reuters on Thursday. He warned that justices who voted to convict the former president could face sanctions under the Magnitsky Act, which was previously used by the Trump administration against de Moraes. If these Supreme Court justices keep following Moraes, they also run the risk of facing the same sanction, he said.